strategically. I mean, we every piece had a reason for being in it. We had a lead singer that was not the greatest singer, but he was so good looking that women would flock to the shows. And because women would flock to the shows,
You mean like a Jim Morrison almost?
I
Like,
mean, women would
yeah.
follow him into the bathroom. And Jeff did this on purpose. And I was kind of unaware at the time what his strategy was, but it was really interesting because as we progressed and played together, after a year or so, we actually came together, in terms of music, and we wound up doing a CD. We had an agent out of Nashville. We could pretty much play 4 or 5 nights a week if we wanted to. We were all in school at the time, so some of it was more important to us than others. I would have rather just been in the band, but anyway, kind of juggling all that. It was a really great ride. We did it without, well, I mean, plenty of little adventure stories, but it was constantly growing, and everybody kind of had the fever, and we all miss it a lot.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for the world.
It was, honestly, like, it's a different set of mind almost because, there was a time where you could put yourself where you had a dream, you wanted to express your love for the arts, and you wanted to be somebody that's creative and do something with that, right? Today, I feel like it's almost where, hey, if I can get it on TikTok and it gets me 1 billion views, there you go. Now I'm famous. There's no like working hard, suffering, having managers mistreat you. There's none of like being broke as fuck to the point you have nothing to show for yourself. Like, it's almost where the hard work has been taken out of the equation entirely. You know what I'm
It is
saying?
absolutely different, yeah, and that's been a very eye-opening experience for me coming back into this with Jeff. The whole strategy has changed on how to get the music out there. I mean, you still want to perform live, you still want to do some of the traditional things, but this whole new little subset of social media and hits and followers and all of that. Of course, none of that existed in the '90s when we were doing it. It was old school.
Get to the next bar.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Load in, load out.
Exactly.
Winding up chords.
And sometimes, I don't know if you had this experience. You ever have those times where you just come up with something immediately in like just out of nowhere? You're like, you know what? Fuck these people. I'm just gonna play something random, and they love it.
Want to. we played at a bar in was that Spartanburg? Macon, Georgia.
Ooh.
And
real South.
The story goes, and Jeff tells it better than I do, so interject, Jeff, if you want. But it was a crowded show. I guess everybody was there for like all you can drink. Do you remember?
Yeah, so we played Macon a few times and had a following, and this guy's like, I want to hire you. I have this thing on Wednesday nights. I do all you can drink for $20 from 5:30 to 7:30. And then I want you to be there at 7:30 because everybody leaves at 7:30. They go to other bars. I'm like, of course they do. So I want you to be there to hold the crowd. And so we're not a 7:30 kind of playing band, right? That's not really was our style.
I'm kind of getting that drift
now. And so we show up maybe at 6:30, and it's just Heath and me. The drummer's not there, the lead guitar's not there, the singer's not there. So we start setting up. We set up the drum set even, and they're playing loud, hip hop music. It's a party. Everybody's having fun, and we're setting up. And then at 7:30 in 0 seconds, the DJ goes, and now from Auburn, Alabama, the Chillbumps. And Heath and I are like, you can hear the cymbals, like we're still setting it up. No one else is there. And we run over to turn on some music on our PA, which now sounds just like crap, like a boombox compared to their big house system. Everybody leaves. We finally get the band there, and we play, and it's a good time. I don't know, out of 200 people that were there for all you could drink, maybe 50 stayed. And they had a great time, and they're like, all right, we'll be back next Wednesday. We'll tell everybody y'all are great and be on time, da-da-da-da. And so, like, at midnight, we're winding down.
Time to go.
And the owner's like, you're supposed to play till 2 a.m. Like, there's literally nobody here. There's like 2 people playing pool. There's the 5 of us, our sound guy, and your bartenders.
Oh my God.
So the lead singer left the building.
The good-looking guy I was making fun of earlier decides he's not going to play in front of 3 people. So
Can we call him Jim? I don't know why. The second you said that shit, I was like Jim Morrison for days.
So Heath and I wrote a song on the spot.
So we jumped up there because he wasn't going to pay us. So I'm like,
Are you
what do we do?
serious?
Well, we got to play. So we talked the drummer into coming up, and we make up a song, and I think we played it for
an hour.
Same song.
Until he finally came up and said, I'll pay you to stop.
Yeah. And it wound up, isn't that on the CD?
Yep.
It wound up being on the CD, but the song was kind of cheesy, called I Don't Want To. And, the homage to this.
I don't want to play.
Yeah, I don't want to play anymore. But, to your point, certainly.
Good times.
Good times.
You know that reminds me of I'm a little bit of a Beatle head, and I remember I was watching a documentary where George was talking about how they created the song My Guitar Slowly Weeps.
Mm-hmm.
And George was just laughing, and the interviewer was like, "Why are you laughing?" And he's like, "You realize that we made the song up just for pure creativity reasons." And the guy being an apt, like, dumbass doornail interviewer is like, "Oh, explain." And George was like, "Well, if you listen to the song, it's him kind of playing around with, imagine a guitar weeping. Because that's kind of what a guitar does. If you go into a lower chord, it starts to weep." And they just made a bullshit song. And everybody fucking loves that crap. But nobody kept to, like, realize as musicians and artists, you're like, oh my God, this guy made a song about what a guitar actually does at low chords. Kind of like, I don't want to do this right now. It's like, just give me my fucking money right now. Like, I don't want to be playing right now. It's almost like artistry at its finest when you're bored as hell.
Yeah.
Voila.
Well, and some people are just tuned into that process. Like, I heard somebody's like, Prince in 1984 could burp and that'd be a #1 hit.
Oh,
like,
fuck yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Can't
agreed.
Hold it back in.
He could belch. He could belch or just like do some like Doves, woo, and that would literally like put Michael Jackson to shame.
Yep, he was amazing.
It's
Did you ever see him?
No.
Yeah.
You never saw Prince?
No.
I'll tell you a funny story about a concert. It's kind of a little off topic. I didn't know Jeff in junior high school, and I lived in a completely different city. We both were in Alabama. He was in Auburn. I was in Montgomery. Didn't know each other. Didn't know we were going to have a band one day. And we found out the very first concert he went to and the very first concert I went to were the same concert in the same venue, the same time.
They didn't know each other.
We didn't know each other. It was just kind of like a universe winked at us, and we didn't realize it. But wait till you hear the band. So it was you claim Houdini, but
Houdini?
I was a Fat Boys
Fat
fan.
Boys?
You probably don't know either one of those. So it's
early hip hop.
A weird first concert for us.
In New Edition, right?
A New Edition.
Houdini, Fat Boys, and New Edition. So.
Was that kind of the same time or like around the Beastie Boys?
A little early, but I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan.
Huge Beastie Boys.
Like Wu-Tang, we're talking about like Wu-Tang Clan era, like 80,
Before that.
83?
This is
Wow.
84, 85.
Like the Fat Boys invented the human beatbox. And I'm not even going to make an example of it. You'll have to Google what the human beatbox
Just go on YouTube, people. You could put this on pause and go right on YouTube and take a listen.
I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. His wife was there. We were like first concerts. So I gave mine, and hers is like U2. And I'm like, I don't know. Pound for pound, who would you rather see first, Houdini or U2? Gotta go with Houdini.
I mean, yeah. I'm one of those I've never been able to get onto the YouTube train. Like,
yeah.
I like some of their songs, but I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I feel like they're a little cheesy.
Yeah.
They're just a little too clean, a little too polished.
Yeah.
They can work a stadium, man. I've seen them a few times. It's hard enough to get in front of 200 people or 2,000, but 100,000 people
and limitless production
and keep
money
them all engaged. He could do that. That's for sure.
Well, I like those artists that can get up on stage and piss the fuck out of the audience. You know, like throw shit at them or like urinate on them or fucking throw a t-shirt or something, you know, and just keep on pounding. I don't know. I think that's more entertaining. I'll be honest with you.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
But I think that's kind of cool, though. You both met at a hip hop event, you know,
we
like
didn't meet. We didn't meet for like 6 years.
No.
Later.
I'm saying like spiritually, you guys met.
Connected.
Yeah. It was fate, meant to be, and it continues to be. I think Jeff mentioned kind of me falling off the map and then finding me again and bringing me back up here.
How long was that until after the concert?
So, well, it was 30 years after the band.
Yeah. So that was probably 86, and then we met in 89, maybe.
Yeah.
88, 89.
Yeah.
Oh,
started
wow.
the band, played the band till 94-ish.
Yep.
Then when did you go off the radar?
Several times. It's been a weird ride for me. I took a job after college, and then I was living in Ireland when 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
And the Irish had no sympathy at all for us. I was homesick. Everybody back here was hugging each other and putting flags in the front yard. And the Irish were like, oh, you had it coming. Foreign policy is too aggressive, Heath. You know, they've been dealing with the IRA for,
100 years.
100 years. So I quit my job and flew back to the States and joined the Marine Corps. So that was my first time I kind of disappeared from everybody. I think there was a rumor out there I had done that, but
you know, you're not the first. You're not one of the first people. I've heard this from a lot of people that are in the Marines. I know one of my classmates the same thing. It's like the Marines is like a place of like getting away from everybody and kind of finding like your place of home. I find that interesting. Yeah,
it'll straighten you out. You hear horror stories of people kind of doing stuff like that and then losing their minds, but the Marine Corps is a little bit different. It's its own motherly womb that it just and in my case it straightened me out and added some focus, but I also disappeared from everybody recently, and then Jeff kind of finding me and bring me back. I had opened up a small cafe in
donut shop.
Same shit, bro. Same shit.
So anyway, I had a girl who was also my business partner.
Damn.
We opened it up, and after a couple of years, we sold it. We kind of built it to sell it, and she became very angry. I'll just leave it at that. And I was down on the coast. My neighbor had this piece of shit 50-foot yacht that was basically a floating box moored a half-mile offshore. And this angry girl, when I say angry, she was going to get me. I mean, that she would tell me she was going to get me. So I went to my neighbor and I said, look, I'll rent this yacht from you, for $1,000 a month. I gotta get it offshore, And it's like, sure, man, because it wasn't worth. I think he paid $15,000 for it or something. So anyway, I just was desperate, and I was going to do it for a couple weeks. She wasn't capable of swimming out there, and I couldn't imagine her.
She didn't pass her swimming lessons when she was in elementary school. Okay,
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wound up staying.
Too many donuts.
Yeah.
Way too many donuts, bro.
Don't even go there.
Look at the cops, bro. Like, I'm from New York, man. They got a fucking Dunkin' Donuts, and they be drinking that coffee and shit all goddamn day. And they be wondering why they can't get out of that fucking car. It takes them fucking 5 minutes, then 10 minutes to come up your window, and they're huffing and puffing. Yeah, sorry. I got a little distracted.
No, it's all right. Anyway, I wound up staying. I was going to do it 2 weeks. I wound up staying out there 2 years, and
you still paid $1,000 fucking for this boat?
I did more than that. Solar panels on it, TV, had internet. Just it wound up being a really great place,
safe haven.
Stay. I mean, the guy I was renting from finally had to kick me off it. He wanted it back, and I don't blame him. But it had a very profound effect on me. I was isolated. I stayed out there. I would come in for groceries and to run and whatever, but I basically was away from everybody. And the open water kind of changed me in a way, and I loved it, and I'd recommend it for anybody. But I came off the boat because one of the reasons was Jeff had found me and said, "Come to."
We're all about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
Greenville, check it out.
Nice job, Jeff.
Yeah. So this was really me coming back into society, and it's been a little bit of a shock to the system because I've been away from people for so long. Like last night, Jeff was constantly doing something. Last night we went to see Driving and Crying, Kevin Kinney, a show.
Oh, nice.
200 people, elbow to elbow, which is, like I said, a little bit of a shock for me, but it's also been good for me to, get back out and into the world. And then the music, of course, that we're doing now has absolutely.
What kind of music are you guys doing currently?
Yeah, this is a weird question, Jeff. I'll let you answer that.
Well,
shit.
It's
not a weird question, a weird answer.
It's it's guitar based, riff based. In a typical song is there's two typicals. One is Heath writes the whole song. He wakes up from a dream
or running
and has the song, chords, changes, chorus, verse, words, ready to go. Maybe not all the words, but some of the words. And then the other typical is I'll write a riff, like just a little or chord progression, and then.
But it's untraditional. Jeff's music is it's hard to, and this is when I said it's going to be a weird answer because it's not anything like my songs. It's more, what would you call it? Kind of a fusion.
Well,
non-traditional.
I don't
not even a 4/4. It's weird. It all comes together somehow, which trips me out.
Yeah.
And then Heath writes the melody.
He writes a melody to it.
And then we'll jointly work on words. And
Damn.
so we have. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm a headbanger, and I love grunge. I love rock, but none of the music that we're doing is turning out into any of that. One of my favorite songs is kind of Frank Sinatra-ish. And so what comes out is just what's coming out. And,
I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but your personality, the way that you talk about music and your kind of inspiration kind of almost reminds me of Willie Nelson. In the way that Willie Nelson has been able to magically pick up a guitar and play music that is not your traditional country.
Right.
Is something that is not normally predominant, because his background, where he's coming from, like you were saying, like your love of rock and grunge and kind of your interaction early on in the 80s with early hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You can have that with an artist that you almost grow. How do I put this? It's like you grow a new set of eyes almost. Like you can think deeper and see things deeper within music. Does that make sense?
Sure, that's cool. I think we got a little REM, little Beastie Boys, little Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
I think.
Ooh.
Yeah. That kind of bouillabaisse of those three groups.
That was kind of the era that you guys were around. And to be honest, those type of artists and creators, they kind of started something new, which is fuck the system.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fuck your label. Like, seriously, you look at a lot of these artists are like, fuck your label. I'm not going to sign your stupid ass contract. Fuck you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People, like, I was hearing the other day, which is something that a lot of people don't even talk about, is like, particularly with Madonna. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Madonna was this big ass mogul, this big ass star, but she said fuck you to the man too.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her own label, and she pulled in artists and she helped build them along the way. I think that's something that you guys grew up with and experienced more. This level of like, hey, we love something, let's work together and make something really great.
Mm-hmm. And I think what I hear current is pretty artificial. It's pretty overly produced, sounds the same often, and there's not a lot of life or creativity left. It's like music by corporate, and that happens often, right? It happened in the 80s with pop music. It happened in the 70s. It happened even in the 60s before the Beatles were there,
It happened in the
and
50s.
and even in the 50s. That's right. There's always a corporate pressure to copycat what worked previously and make a risk-free song by committee, and that's I just can't stand it. So we're against that.
Yeah.
I'm against-
Sex Pistols.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, think about even like with the Beastie Boys, right? They literally have a song about I can't remember the exact lyrics in the song. It's the one where I want to party.
Yeah.
I want
Fought for my right to party.
Yeah. And this is coming from a group of guys that were raised in the Upper East Side in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Their parents were wealthy. They went to like private schools. They had like the top of but it's hilarious because they're not like saying that like they experienced it. They're kind of like saying, hey guys, you know, like fuck our parents. They're not letting us have fun.
Have you seen them, haven't you?
No, I've seen them a couple times. They're awesome.
They are. Do they still play?
Well, one of them passed away, so they're not so much.
But one of them had like a memorial concert or something right after he passed, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe, yeah. In fact, they have I was just up in New York this summer and went to BC Boy Plaza.
Oh, wow.
That was cool.
Yeah. Is that kind of the inspiration that you guys have had from those other artists? Is how you've been able to make, or you feel you've got your inspiration from other places for your music?
I think it really, for me and Heath, I'll speak for myself. Heath can speak for himself. I've always, since I could learn to play guitar, I've been writing little riffs and little chord progressions. And then that's the end of it. That's it. There's just a cool riff, a cool little chord progression, but I can't really add a melody on top. And so I've played with 50 people over the last 30 years, and none of them connect with me in these riffs as much as Heath. And so there is a mind meld there.
Chemistry.
And I think you would say the same thing. You play with folks and they just don't quite, we don't quite have the spark as we do together.
So Jeff and I back in the day when the Chillbumps were doing what they did. I mean, we played some pretty big crowds, but Jeff and I it was a 5-piece band, and the two of us were always set up on the same side. So there's kind of that chemistry that just developed over time. Plus, so much happens when you're playing live. Sometimes you're nervous. Sometimes, things don't feel right. Sometimes you got some unruly jackass in the crowd who's,
of course,
and
hecklers.
Jeff was always kind of a security blanket for me too, to have there. I've kind of always needed, some consistency with everything. So it really was seamless to come back here to Greenville. Jeff has a studio set up already, and it was just like made to play, and so it was seamless for me to come back and pick it up where we left off, and it felt just like that. I mean, it's like kind of riding a bike. We've written about 21 songs that are in various stages at the time, and some of them are I'm really excited about, which is really fun to be creating something that you're motivated with and you think about. And, I'm constantly, something is always in the back of my mind about how to improve it or what we need to add to it or, how we're going to, kind of keep this thing progressing. But it's been great.
We had a Christmas song that we wrote. We were asked to write. There's another podcast, Rockin' the Suburbs, and they released an album, and we got to participate and put a song on track on that
Christmas song, and we got the assignment in July. Never written a Christmas song before. Especially in the summer, but it wound up being pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of it.
Isn't I mean, you guys have noticed this before. Like, it's kind of weird how almost like there's a dominance within Christmas songs, that it's like for years there's always been those like handful of 50s songs or like kind of late 40s. And there have been like some people that have managed to cross that, like Mariah Carey is an example.
Obviously, yeah.
But it's like almost kind of weird. Like we're almost like we're like kind of stuck. We're stuck in this every fucking
they all
Christmas.
Kind of have a similar sound. You know, those Christmas songs are all kind of traditional, and we kind of came out with something that breaks a little bit away from the mold. I think a lot away from it. It's not like your typical, you know, Christmas bells
tingling
type of song. Exactly.
Bells jingling.
It's called Christmas Lost Today. It's a little more somber than a lot of Christmas songs.
It's kind of like a Sublime meets Nirvana. Christmas
meets Willie Nelson.
Meets Willie Nelson. Okay.
Got an acoustic guitar on it, so it's great. Check it out. Have your listeners check it out.
Oh, for sure. Hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say, if you've been enjoying the podcast and enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing. Someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode. Sure.
It's on Bandcamp, I think, under Rockin' the Holidays.
Okay.
That's the name of the album.
I like
and our
that.
band name is Hecojeni.
How do you spell that?
Hecojeni.
Okay. And I'm gonna make sure I'll leave links below for any lazy people out there. So you click with your finger. But what I was gonna honestly, I found that really fascinating because, like, right, isn't that, you know, there's like so many of these like boxes within the music world itself. Like we're just talking about, like, with Christmas songs. And I'm always fascinated of, like, how does that happen? How does, like, one thing, like almost like a corporation, take control of, like, a fucking holiday?
Well, there's money to be made. There's corporations there that are making it. So that's what I think. And I'm a pretty solid capitalist. I think that's what happens. There's money to be made, then you know, you're gonna find a way to make it.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, once you got 1 billion streams on Spotify for Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, hey, and the lady is still alive.
Yep. I hope she's getting paid. I don't know what her contract was, but
what is there a story behind this? I'm not familiar with this.
Well, most of those artists in the 50s signed away their life rights early on in their careers.
I mean, she was 16 years old when she
Brenda Lee.
Yeah.
So I hope she got a piece of that action. Pretty sure Mariah Carey has a piece of that action.
Oh, for sure. Come on.
It's like a mint.
Yeah.
Printing your own money every Christmas.
But, you know, something I've had to start realizing is, okay, even for myself, our YouTube channel has been highly, like, closed by YouTube because their algorithm won't push out our content because of the type of conversations I have and the type of people that I talk with. You know, particularly even within music, you can clearly now see that there is a pattern. There's an agenda of what music gets pushed and what music doesn't. Because if you go on social media or on certain platforms, so for example, like podcasts like we're doing right now, you get to actually interact with artists such as yourself that are in the real world, that you can physically and now hear more clearly than ever. And you can see what they've been doing. They basically push up whatever the fuck they want and what they think is going to sell and make money. And then kind of everything else kind of gets pushed into the organized file all the way in the back office.
Right. Well, it's interesting how AI might alter that if it's able to. I trust AI more than a human, right? To just say this is cool enough to press forward, as opposed to an algorithm that's controlled by people with their fingers on the dial, saying favor people from this, you know, corporate entity. I'd rather it be a level playing field.
Yeah.
Although it's always been tough, right? I mean, we back in the day, lugging equipment around the Southeast.
I mean, making food money sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was any easier. It's easy to glamorize the past sometimes. But there was a stranglehold on music in the 80s and 90s, and it's always been.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, living paycheck to paycheck, or literally living to your bottom dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I kind of elevate is that there are some of us humans alive that strive to have not only a more meaningful life, but be able to spread our creativity regardless
Mm-hmm.
of what we capture. Like, for example, I think that you don't need to be famous to be a great artist. I think you just need to be a great artist.
I buy
And
that.
not for the audience, but for yourself. You know that you're making music that you love and you want to share with the world.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Something that you are excited about making, and you're creating something and putting it out there. It's really special. I enjoy it a lot. And I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I think that fame is a great thing for a lot of people, but it's what you define it to be. Sometimes you can inspire somebody. You can bring a shine of creativity upon somebody. Even for example, like between the two of yourself, right? You're creating music back and forth. You kind of get to have a dynamic where you kind of share your artistry back with each other. Jeff throws out an idea and Heath throws out an idea, and you kind of put those things together, and voila, you make a creation out of it. That in itself is unique.
It's important to me. Like I said, something's always in the back of my head with one of our songs, and a lot of times I'll get an idea and I'll come back with Jeff and like, oh, I've got an extra verse we need to put here, or we need to add some texture here, and you know the music that we're doing now, like I mentioned, I think earlier, it's all in kind of various stages of being done. I think really we've only got 3 or 4 that we would consider done, but even you were working on some of those today. So
we have this weird idea of
this is cool,
of engaging with an audience even before songs are fully complete, and getting feedback and making it a little bit more crowdsourced, like
kind of like open source
add
project.
a verse, or that riff didn't work, or here's a cool riff I have that could go on top. We'd love to think about that.
So so they could, we put it out there, call it the open source project, and then somebody listens to it and they get an idea. They can message Jeff with maybe a chord pattern, or maybe even vote anything really, and we consider it, and maybe it changes the song. So it's kind of a collaborative open source project that we're
I heard, it hit me, there's who was the guy that wrote with Jerry Garcia on the Dead? There was a songwriter that wrote most of the lyrics. Like Jerry didn't write a lot of lyrics. No, he was a separate.
No,
I know who it is.
Hold on. Well,
Google it though.
Yeah,
like Rick Rubin or something.
No.
Rick Rubin was he became famous because he handled the Beastie Boys.
That's right. Rick Rubin.
He distributed their first album. Okay, let me check.
Well, this guy, you look it up. This guy, he was talking about the song. What's the High on Cocaine? Casey Jones. I don't know. Anyhow, he was like, really, we wrote this song to where the verses could be added by anybody forever. It's so simple. It's 2 little couplets, and he rattled off like another 10 couplets that didn't make it in the song. But he's like, the song could have been 40 minutes long. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I found, I think, is it Robert Hunter?
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Sounds
right. That sounds right.
But I mean, here's a crazy story about Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
For a lot of people that don't know this, Jerry Garcia albums are extremely like records, like vinyl records.
Right.
They're extremely rare and they're very hard to come by. Why? Well, when he died, a bunch of rich people thought it'd be a great idea to buy all of his records and then rack up the prices like nobody's business. I have one Jerry Garcia album,
Right.
and I got it in Rhode Island. I met this guy at a fair in Providence, and I was like, talking to him about music and stuff, and he was also an artist. It's just selling vinyl records.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, he's like, you seem like the type of artist that'll like this. He goes like behind one of the cartons that was full of
Mm-hmm.
vinyl, and he pulls out a Jerry Garcia one, and he's like, it's $15.
Wow.
So I'm
I
curious.
have the first edition, 1973 or 74.
Hmm.
So
Paid
what?
$15.
Put a dollar on it. What do you think it's worth?
I checked up on Discogs. It's worth between $500 to $650.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. But I mean, I'm still kind of pissed off at those people that did that, because like they took away something that a lot of people can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
That is something, by the way, like you guys just brought up, which I think is really important, is there was a way where you can kind of take away a person's right to share their music.
Yeah.
And we see this with a lot of artists. I mean, it just goes through the list. But you being able to say, no, like, I want to share my music. I want to hear what people have to say. And like, nobody can stop you. I mean, it's out there publicly. Like, there's no guardrails of any kind. It's like you're able to be at the top of the hill whenever you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that's changed for the good, I think. We could write a song this afternoon and it could be on Spotify by midnight.
Crazy.
That's never happened before in the history of mankind.
No.
It's really crazy.
No.
And the tools that you have, on your desktop are as good as the studio we recorded in 30 years ago.
He's sometimes even better.
Oh, yeah. It's the talent.
I remember I had, I think it was somebody that I had on the podcast or somebody that I talked with.
Mm-hmm.
He was a sound engineer in the 1970s in New York.
Yeah.
And he used to tell me, he's like, first off, you don't understand how bad these sound machines were. They pulled out so much heat. Okay. They have to keep these rooms very, very cold. And he said, like, it could be 98 degrees outside in July, but you come into work, you put on a thick jacket, and you go in and you work in the studio.
Crazy.
And
all the tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And back then, the way that they used to have to be able to do synthesizers, especially in the late 70s, was like, you move your hand the wrong way, you hit the key, like that's it. You got to take out the reel of tape, cut
Session's over.
There you go. You got to start all over again. It's just crazy, and how like we went from physical cellophane all the way now to digital construction. And I think, like, to your point, even with AI, there's been a lot of benefits with AI. Like, think about it. We could maybe be able to take some of the works of like Amy Winehouse, for example, that was never finished, and be able to bring them out to full production. There could be ways, for example, in the future where you guys can use AI to be able to reformulate your music in different ways you never thought of before.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's really fascinating where we are now. And keep in mind, this has only been 30 years, right? This isn't a long period of history.
That's right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the whole AI-driven and corporate-driven, what we were talking about earlier, like producing by committee, I think that's going to open markets for a little more lo-fi, a little DIY. Like, people crave human interaction more so than machine interaction, I think. And so I don't know. I think that there's going to be a renaissance of roots-based, simple, drums, bass, guitar, vocal kind of approach. That's how most of our songs start, and then we do layer in some stuff on top.
Yeah.
Hand claps and weird synthesizer stuff.
Something I ran across on Spotify recently, which I didn't even know was a thing, and I had to like research this. There are these playlists that are recordings of Japanese singers in jazz clubs or late night clubs in like the 60s and 70s. But they've used AI to edit them so it sounds more cleaner. And you can kind of hear the instruments better. You can kind of hear also like the musician, like the actual like singer singing a lot better.
Cool.
And I'm like, to this example, right? You're able to take something like that and make something completely different.
Yeah. Resurrect it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Exciting times.
It is. How have you mentioned a little bit? How have you guys have you adapted any of these things or not really?
Yeah. We use some generation of drum tracks sometimes, and that's really the extent of AI, I guess. Some drum tracks.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have tools, and automation, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my
So
god, it's amazing.
we're learning those tools, and
Especially
primarily,
looping.
primarily use Logic Pro on
Yeah.
a
Oh,
Mac.
it's excellent.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, anybody, pretty much anybody can do this, right? You can just
Hmm.
go on your Mac or you can go on any computer and you can just immediately start working on these
That's
things.
right. Yep.
And I just, I even for the both of yourselves, right? Coming from you said you came from musical background, you play guitar. Being able to see like the progression of how much you can now do with the same instrument that you remember starting with, all the way now.
Hmm. Well, one thing that I've done, I guess that there's every once in a while we'll do this. Like I'll play a chord progression, and then you used to be able to record on your iPhone. They had an app called Music Memo. They've since killed it. What's cool about Music Memo, if you record a little part of guitar, it will determine the chord progression. It'll show you the chords, and it'll determine the rhythm. And then if you mash a button, it'll create a drum track and a bass track, which is really cool. And so sometimes I've done the guitar in there, and it'll create as three separate tracks that you can then import first into GarageBand and then into Logic. And I'll take that bass track it's now created in MIDI and put that back into the Logic, but I won't play it as a bass. I'll play it as like a weird synthesizer, or even like another drum track, but that drum is now following the rhythm and the chord progression of the original guitar. So that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool and different, and maybe we chop it up and just use a little bit of it here and there, but that's kind of a machine driven. You couldn't do that before.
No, and I think that's
It's pretty
amazing
cool.
too, because like you being able to kind of having an idea and then kind of like putting it together. I play a little bit of guitar, so
Cool.
kind of having that idea of like where your fingers are supposed to go and how you're strumming, and then having that. I don't know if they possibly might have an app similar. I don't know if they do, but that is really cool because it kind of gives you that extra element as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heath, you mentioned that you do songwriting. So you write mostly lyrics. Is that correct?
So yes, and kind of turn them into a melody to match Jeff's kind of jazz fusion craziness he comes up with. But it's working. I like to try to come up with a melody that you might would hum in the shower, something that a loop that kind of sticks with you is kind of the goal, something catchy that has a hit to that has a hitch to it,
It
and
has a good
it
rhythm
sticks
to
in
it.
your head. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, it's uh, quite a fun little process that we've got kind of figured out. We've each got our roles, and I wind up liking 90% of the weird stuff Jeff comes up with, and I don't know how he does so. He played bass in our old band, but we've kind of switched up a little bit. I'm playing some bass now. He's doing guitar now, and so it just kind of depends on what the song is and where he's going with it. So
Yeah. So the both of you guys just play bass and guitar. Do you play any other instruments?
I play drums a little bit. I mean, anything really. We've got some harmonica in there. We got some. Uh,
Percussion, other
yeah,
percussion.
we got a sitar.
Oh wow.
uh, I mean, Jeff's got a little collection of things. And our first CD that we put out, the Chillbumps, Jeff brought a mishmash of stuff into the studio for us to use. He had nailed an air conditioning grate to a wood board we used as a scrape. Anything's an instrument, I guess,
Hmm.
at some point. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So now we're just switching up, just depending on who writes what. He may be playing guitar on it. I may be doing some drums on it. Who knows? It just depends.
Yeah,
No limits.
no limits. But I like that too. I mean, because being able to create music for rhythm is actually, there are many different ways of how music is made. But what I find fascinating about creating music for rhythm is it's like almost what you said, where you can kind of hum it in the shower. Like you can hear the
Mm,
song and you can kind of like know where the rhythm is going, and you can kind of know where the words are going as you're
Sure.
singing it, right?
Yeah.
yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, I mean, the melody is what people remember. I mean, that's what separates
I try to write a loop
songs from
people will want to
poems.
sing. That people will hum. That it's it's catchy. It'll stick with you. It's uh, so anyway. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
And we've come up with some pretty neat things recently. I'm pretty proud of.
Well, I think all artists get inspiration from somewhere. I mean, particularly like now with your writing style and you be making music. Where do you think like a lot of your inspiration has been coming from most recently?
I mean, I have a favorite band, and we sound nothing like him, but I love Maynard James Keenan from Tool. I mean, I love
Oh
him.
wow, you're a
I
Tool
mean,
fan. I love that.
oh, big time. I saw him in North Carolina, I guess a couple of years ago. A few years ago was the last time I saw him. But and I think he writes some really profound lyrics too, and a lot of it is very spiritual. So I won't say that he's like an influence on my music because, like I said, we don't sound anything like it. But I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah. I find that really interesting. I particularly I like metal too. I think a lot of people kind of find like the dark art. I call it the dark arts of music.
Sure, I can see why.
It's
Yeah,
Harry Potter,
yeah. I mean, and
dark arts.
yeah, there's like this almost like awe of like screaming out your pain and sorrows. But to your point too, there's something about it that's spiritual. I always felt like there's a spirituality to heavy metal, hard rock, where you can kind of like connect and feel the pain and relate at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that I mean, pertaining to like that being an inspiration, when you're writing your music, do you kind of find that as well, like being able to find a connection to spirituality when you're making
Oh,
your music?
absolutely. A lot of my lyrics, I think, are based on my little 2 years I had out in the open water. The guy I rented the boat from was kind of a hard drinking womanizer captain, and he told me before I went out there, he said, "Be careful about looking for God because you'll find him." And I thought he was kind of joking. Maybe he didn't want me to not be his bar buddy anymore or something. I don't know, but let me tell you something. He was right. You get out there and on the water, and you start asking questions. Anybody, you start asking questions, you're going to find answers. And certainly the music the lyrics that I'm coming up with a lot now. I try to. Some of them have a lot to do with this awakening that it seems like we're going through as a society. This kind of consciousness that's stirring and causing a lot of changes in the world right now. And I'm a firm believer that we're kind of smack dab in the middle of some pretty cool shit going on.
Yeah. I think that for one of the first times in an industrial society, and maybe in any modern civilization, we're more aware of our surroundings. You know, to that example, I mean, a lot of us go through shit. And I can even imagine for yourself, being in that place where you need a sense of solitude, you just need to get away, um, is understandable. You know, we go through a lot. People think that life is easy. It ain't easy. All
Hmm.
right. And it's crazy because sometimes all you need is just that one experience, and sometimes there's multiple experiences that really opens your eyes to what you're actually capable of, what you didn't believe you were capable of.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. um what I wanted to, you guys were kind of talking about earlier with your early experience, like coming from college, and you guys eventually like coming together and kind of being able to form what you have now. um besides like your artist creativity and your story, have you been able to search out or be able to connect to any other types of artistry that you may like find relatable? You know, like I know some artists are like always just instruments or sometimes just creating music, but sometimes there's other things that we like to do as well, you know?
Well, Jeff's a painter. He's got a lot of art hanging in the studio that I've been pretty impressed with. I wasn't aware of some of his latent talents, but you know, Jeff's got some pretty good paintings.
What do you paint?
You know, it was really task driven. So I went to Paris with one of my best friends and his wife, and they had never been. I'd been a couple times. So I was looking for something new to do. Like, I mean, we're gonna go to the Eiffel Tower, we're gonna go to Notre Dame, we're gonna go to the Louvre. So I was like, I'm gonna go on a chef's market day, and that's be cool. I like to cook too. And it was
Yeah.
like $800 a person. I was like, golly, that's crazy. So, but they had this other thing. It was like an artist day where you show up one of these 4 or 5 locations based on the weather and the sun, and you paint something. But that was also like $800. I'm like, that's just crazy. 800 is 4 of us. I'm not gonna do that. I think I can do this myself. So I bought supplies and I went to Paris and I painted like the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, Giverny. I painted Normandy Coast where World War II was, and Provence, a couple other places. Anyhow, I like miniatures, little ones. I hadn't painted since kindergarten, and it was fun. And it was cool. Like I remember going to Genevieve and I've set up. It's kind of drizzly. My now ex-wife, she's like, I'm going to the car. And so I set up, and this school teacher brings her class around me to watch me. Like, right? I knew what I was doing. So I did that. I did that same kind of thing in Bermuda. And then I think I said REM's my favorite band.
Great band.
What about the artists you've retained to do the Beastie Boys?
I'll get to that. So I'm painting the first 6 albums by REM, Chronic Town to Document.
Oh, painting the album covers?
Yes. So I've done about 3. I got 3 more to do. And
how big are they?
Better. They're 24 by 24. So
Jesus, man.
Size. So they're pretty cool. I'm proud of those.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Cool. You know what? I honestly feel like that is kind of like our sense of like connection too, because like being an artist doesn't mean like you're good at just one thing. It means, you know, you could like many different things. You know, for example, myself, like I love podcasting. I draw myself. I kind of dabble doing music. I love cars. I'm currently going to school to be like an auto technician because, you know, oh my God, the sound of some V8s and that hum. Ooh. But, you know, being able to take those passions and things and be able to do things with them, I think is kind of like, again, like the thing that we should be doing as people. Instead of just sitting on your fucking ass and complaining how miserable the world is, do something. You know, go have fun. Go be that 12-year-old and fucking slam a ball out and, you know, in the backyard.
And be grateful every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
It really shapes each day. It, you know, sets you up for success. Kind of waking up with that positive mindset. You're grateful for this. Not focus on what you're lacking, but focusing on what you have. And you know, no telling. Sky's the limit. No telling what's going to happen. I get excited every morning.
Yeah. I remember I heard, I was watching a YouTube clip. I forgot the artist that was saying this. He said that back in the 70s, when people would ask you what kind of job that you had, most people would answer that they have a job that they love and they're passionate about, but generally speaking, they weren't paid a lot for them. People were more interested in getting jobs that were creative and they felt like a sense of passion towards, than get some kind of mundane and miserable job. I don't know how accurate or true this is, but I like the idea of it where, you know, even for myself, right, there are many different ways as artists to be able to stay afloat, be able to create a way that you're able to financially stay on your own 2 feet. And there are many ways that people do this. You have people that are insanely amazing chefs, but they're great guitarists too. You have incredible tattoo artists that are also incredibly amazing chefs. It's not what we give out, but what we can give to ourselves.
Love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
Did you come up with that? Right?
I wish.
That's okay. You know what? For the sake of this, Heath.
That's a Heath quote.
It's a Heath quote.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'll take credit.
All right. Before we wrap up, you guys mentioned your music. Do you do you have a website, like your social media? Walk me through all this, because
Yeah. I think the best place to land is hecojeni.com, and that'll take you to wherever our music. That'll take you get in contact with us, and then all the socials. We're just starting to think about how to market. We wanted to focus on the songs first, get 3 or 4 songs ready to be released.
Have you thought about Rumble by any chance?
I don't think so. Tell me why.
I started, because I told you we've been limited by YouTube. We put it on Rumble, and our numbers are a lot higher than they're on YouTube.
So how is Rumble related to Truth Social or Trump somehow? Isn't there some kind of I know it's a publicly traded stock, right? It's a publicly traded company, and it does well when
X or Twitter.
Yeah. Are you aware of that angle?
It's like the anti-Twitter, isn't it?
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Well, Rumble is kind of like the anti-YouTube in the sense where, as a creator and a content maker, they're very upfront with you. They're like, we're willing to monetize, which they give you a fraction of amount, but it's kind of built around like the community of people that are posting. So unlike YouTube, which uses an algorithm that, has keywords and phrases and kind of goes through your video, Rumble is kind of more of where it's up there. It could be whatever you want. Like, I'll be honest with you, there are some stuff on Rumble. Oh my God. Like bad. Okay. Like, like we're talking KKK, white national, like bad shit. But it's kind of the price you have to pay to almost give, that form of free speech and open-mindedness and kind of allow people to find whatever they need to. But that would be the only con I would say about it. But yeah, that's kind of the reason why I kind of went towards Rumble and kind of gave it a little bit of a shot. But yeah.
All right. Well, we'll put it in our offer. Take a look.
Awesome. I mean, you guys have said you've been working on music. Have you gotten anything released recently?
Yeah, well, we had the Christmas song got released through the Rockin' the Suburbs podcast on Bandcamp. Our stuff is available on SoundCloud. In fact, we have a playlist of, 7 songs that we're calling Work in Progress. That's what people can kind of check out and give us their 2 cents. And then we have another folder of maybe 15 songs that's not quite yet ready for that honest feedback. It would be too harsh.
Yeah.
We feel emotionally mature, but maybe not quite that amount emotional.
You're men at work. No
That's
pun
right.
intended.
I love that band.
Great band. But yeah, I mean, listen, I honestly appreciate you guys coming on. I think that having these conversations and being able to talk about the different ways of creating music and just the different ways of, like, we as artists or just people in general, just finding what you love and making something really awesome with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate you having us on the show.
Yeah, it was great.
Really enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, my pleasure, my man. Well, listen, to anybody out there, if you want to check out more of the podcast, you can find us on all the socials and have a awesome pod. So with that, catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.